Okay, so hello everyone. My name's Luke. I work in Fairphone's commercial team. I'm part of a small team that looks after our growth in Europe. If you haven't heard of Fairphone, we're a Dutch social enterprise that makes phones to change the electronics industry from the inside out. We started back in 2010 as an awareness campaign, actually about, there's in a smartphone about 40 materials end up in a smartphone, and very few people realize that actually some of these materials come from tertiary countries such as Africa, and the materials that are mined are actually used to finance war. And we realized that although this was a great awareness in what we were doing in terms of putting a spotlight on this, the real way to have an impact is to be within the industry. So Fairphone makes smartphones with the ambition that actually we can put a spotlight on the conditions of the supply chain of a smartphone, and we can see where we can have a positive impact across that in terms of social and in terms of environmental. And there's 4 platforms in which Fairphone works on: fairer materials, longer lasting design, reusing and recycling, and improving the working conditions of those that work in the supply chain.
Right, so simply just it's basically raising awareness of really where our phones actually stem from, and making sure that they're phones that are smart solutions for the phone in the future.
It is a movement. So, but rather than being a consultancy or a charity, we've produced a product to show that actually it is possible to have an impact, and we want to be a pioneer for change. So we're showing that actually within the electronics industry, you can make positive change, and we hope that what we're doing, other actors within the industry will follow in our footsteps.
Okay, you've got that phone in your pocket. We'll look at that in a little bit later. We're going to move on now to Jean. Jean, tell us your story. What are you doing?
Hi everyone, so I'm Jean, the co-founder of Phenix. So our unsexy stuff is waste, because we are dealing with waste on a daily basis, especially food waste. And our sexy solution is a digital platform connecting offer and demand, so connecting retailers like Carrefour in France, Auchan, Franprix, Leclerc, Casino, who have next to the expiry dates, inventories, products, and we make sure that they don't end in the trash can or in landfilling, but in second life cycles, like charities, food banks, etc., or animal feeding, or compost, biogas, etc. So we try to turn waste into wealth and to unleash the potential of the waste, which we see as a raw material rather than just a cost center and a problem.
Right, so literally turning waste into wealth, making it wealthy for all.
Yeah, that's our baseline.
Okay, good baseline. Right, we'll talk about that in a second. Back to Luke. Right, listen, we need to. Have you got the phone in your pocket?
On me, yeah.
Pull it out. Let's see your phone.
Right, it might be difficult for me to talk whilst.
Can you hold his mic? Yeah.
Okay, so basically, one of our points is longer lasting design. So essentially, for us, we believe that the longer you are able to hold onto your phone, the less waste and the less material that you're going to be using to create a new phone. So we designed a phone that is made to last longer. We've designed a phone that was modular. So first of all, I'm just going to take off the cover. So just take it off like this.
Before you go on, actually, how long do you? I'd love to know how long do you keep your phones for? Honestly, right? If it's 3 months or up to 3 months, put your hand up until you throw it away, until you change it. Okay, no one. 3 months, really? Wow. You get through a lot of phones, my friend. 6 months? 1 year? 2 years? Okay, it's longer than I thought. Right, okay. Okay, how long does yours, how long can people keep yours for?
For us, we want people to hold on to their phone between 3 to 5 years. But we also want to challenge, although many people here said, well, actually quite well, and I'm glad that you hold on to your phone for at least 2 years, but actually what we see within the industry is that almost every year, manufacturers are bringing out a new design, a new model. So like almost encouraging you to throw away the old one, irrespective of whether it doesn't work or not. So for us, we wanted to build this modular phone. So for example, a great example is the battery. So many people will replace their phone once the performance of the battery starts deteriorating. Here, for example, let's say in 18 months or 2 years, your Fairphone, the battery, starts having a worse performance. You just change the battery rather than having to replace the whole phone. Next, the second common thing, people drop their phones. And what's really important for us is being able to actually open up your device and fix it yourself. So literally, within seconds, I've managed to open up my phone, and this is the screen. So if I were to drop my phone, I could buy the screen as a spare part rather than having to buy a whole new phone and replace it. And then the last thing, which might be quite difficult to see, but I'll try anyway. We've got these little blue dots, blue spare parts here, that you can open up the phone and replace these different parts as well. So for example, the charger, the microphone, or the camera. It's all about making it incredibly easy for people to make reparation, to repair their phone by themselves without having to use another company for it. And that's, it's very circular. The idea that you can use your phone for longer, you can repair it yourself, and therefore you can extend its life cycle. And thank you. That's
the first thing, as you were doing that, the first thing that comes to mind is, okay, if people keep it, let's say, for 3 to 5 years, within that space of time, clearly the technology would have, progressed.
Yeah.
Can you update your phone with the technology as well?
So that's one of the challenges that Fairphone faces, and that's part of our commitment to longer lasting design. So for example, when the Fairphone first came out towards the end of 2015, our platform runs on Android. The model that it was running on was Android 5. Last summer, we did an upgrade for our users to move to Android 6. And in a couple of weeks, we will be releasing a new model that allows Fairphone 2 users to upgrade to Android 7. That's a software upgrade. But also last summer, we did the first, and this was an industry first, we were the first people within the smartphone industry, we allowed them to do an upgrade to their camera. So rather than someone having to buy a whole new phone, actually, just this little piece here, we provided, and it allowed them to move from 8 megapixels to 12 megapixels. And we were the first people to provide a hardware upgrade without having to change the whole phone. So for us, of course, the industry changes, but we try and adapt to that, and we try and prove that actually you can hold on to things for longer.
What you mentioned earlier on about the parts of a mobile phone, or when it was made, if we all look at our phones now, if we were to say to ourselves, okay, where did our smartphone actually come from? I know I couldn't tell you. All I could tell you is maybe the manufacturer and perhaps the shop where I bought it. But what you're saying is, potentially, a lot of the parts, things that are actually you find inside the smartphone, are not as people are not really aware of exactly where it all started.
This is very much the unsexy part of the supply chain. I think Fairphone is a circular product in a linear model. In the sense that we are encouraged to buy a phone and then throw it away and then not care about it. But actually, people don't realize that I said at the beginning, there's about 40 different materials that end up in a smartphone. Within those conditions, you've got potentially child labor, you've got bad working conditions, and you've got some places in Africa where the minerals are being used to finance war. So it's what's called conflict materials.
Right.
And Fairphone has been the first person to actually, rather than be like, do you know what? These are conflict areas. We don't want to have anything to do with them. That wouldn't help anybody. So Fairphone goes to the areas that are problematic. So we've gone to Congo, we've gone to Rwanda, and we've proved that it's possible to source materials. So we have in our phone tin, tungsten, and tantalum from these areas that are conflict-free and 100% traceable.
Really? So is anyone else on the market doing the same thing? Who else is kind of, or at least thinking along the same lines as what you guys are doing?
Our job is to be a pioneer for change. So it's what we don't want to do. Well, for us, it's difficult for me to talk about what other actors have done. What I do want to do is be like, look, we're very transparent in what we do. Like, we don't make it a secret into the projects that we work on. We make it very open to people to understand how we've done it by working with partners, by being on the ground, and in the hope that they would actually copy what we do. The idea is to build a movement and to show that it's possible to do change and have change, and then hopefully others can copy it.
And have you've had a good response so far?
We have. We have about a community of 150,000 Fairphone users across Europe. we've now started being present in big operators. So here in France, Orange launched with us last year. In the Netherlands, we went live with Vodafone a couple of months ago. In Austria, we were with T-Mobile. I think all of this is proof. Not only is there a demand for ethical products, but actually the industry and those big players that are willing to work with us prove that actually the industry is changing.
Okay, listen, I mean, absolutely, absolutely. So people in the audience now, they're listening to what you've just said. They're interested, intrigued, want to get involved, or at least learn a little bit more about what you've been sharing. What's their next step?
I think for us, like we said, the phone you have in your hand is the most sustainable one you have. However, if you are looking for a new phone or you want to be part of what Fairphone is doing, then I would certainly seriously consider Fairphone as an option for your next device. And you can go on fairphone.com and you can find that.
Cost-wise, what are we looking at?
The
competitive?
Fairphone, it is mid to high range in price. It's about 529 euros. What I often say, people say, well, that's quite expensive. I think that Fairphone finds itself in a position that what fair trade coffee was in the 80s and the 90s. Like, it was a completely new concept that someone would pay more or would pay a premium for a fairer product. I think right now what we are doing is the fair trade of electronics, the fairer electronics, and that's why perhaps it might be considered a steeper price, but it is making a huge difference to the electronics industry.
Fantastic. Okay, what we'll do now, we'll pause it here with you just for a moment and move over to Jean. Jean, tell us a little bit more about exactly what you're doing, perhaps a little bit more about the business model of what you do.
That's a good point, because we didn't create Phenix on a non-profit base. We are a for-profit company. We are a social business. And how do we make money? The business model is quite simple in the end. It's just we enable two things. First, cost killing, and second, tax credits. Because what you need to understand is unsold products and waste is a cost center for our clients, which are Carrefour, Casino, Leclerc, because they need to pay a waste manager, legacy player to collect and then incinerate, destroy, and it costs more or less 200 euros per ton. So by giving the products to Phenix and sending them to charities, we just reduce the cost of waste management, reduce the tonnages, reduce the volumes. So it's they earn money on this at this level. And then secondly, they also, our clients get and collect a tax credit on the in-kind donations. If Carrefour, Casino, or Leclerc gives to Phenix and to the food banks in fine 100 euros of products, they can collect 60 euros of tax credit. So it's a win-win situation with a double effect, less costs and optimized fiscality, and we take a success fee on that. So that's the business model, success fee on the economies. And it works because we are 5 years old now. We were created back in 2014. And we started from 0 to 10 million euros of revenues. This year we will be around 10 million euros of revenues. We created 100 jobs, and we also have an extra financial impact of which we are proud of, which is every day we redistribute 100,000 meals, and accumulated since 2014 it's 40 million meals, so it's becoming significant, and we are proud of it.
I can imagine. I mean, in just 5 years, from zero, literally, when nobody knew about this at all, to where it is today, it's going in the right direction. I can imagine. So the next 5 years, what's the plan? What's the master plan?
The master plan is to, for the time being, we are mainly located in France. Of our 100 employees, 95 are here in France, and we have two persons in Spain, 3 in Portugal. But the model seems to have a potential on the international abroad. For example, in Spain, in Portugal, we have the same clients. Carrefour, Casino, Auchan, all of them are present in the European countries. So we just need to follow them, and I mean the environment is the same. In terms of waste management, which is poorly managed today, charity needs, tax credit and the legislation, the regulatory aspect are also aligned. So we just need to make Phenix a European champion rather than just a French champion. So that's the plan. And for this, we just launched, we are in the process of closing a round of financing where we raised 10 million euros with 2 funds. I cannot disclose the names, but it will be the case soon. So it's also a way for us to boost the development of the company.
Interesting. I'm interested more about perhaps the tech for good scene. So just your views on the tech for good scene, green in society.
Yeah,
what do you think?
That's part of the sexy aspect. So we are what we call the tech for good companies, because what I didn't describe is a process. So I am a store manager at Leclerc, Leroy Merlin, Carrefour. Anyway, I just need to scan my barcode and say, okay, I have 2 pallets of yogurts that are perishing by tomorrow. So I just take a picture or scan the barcode and then press a button, and the offer is spread to all the charities around. So they get a notification and they say I'm interested, and they just book the volume and either come and collect or being delivered by Phenix. So that's the tech for good aspect, the digital aspect, which can be called green tech or clean tech, but it wouldn't work by itself. So we had to, almost at the beginning, to consolidate it with unsexy services like logistics, like training, like people on the field. So we are not only a tech for good company, that would be bullshit. We are kind of an hybrid animal between tech and traditional services, logistics, training, people on the field. So we are kind of an hybrid animal, and we are more and more going to the tech way, but to start the business, we had to be on both legs.
Just to think about perhaps governments, what should they be doing perhaps to stimulate the creation of positive impact?
Governments?
Yeah. Actually, I'll open this up one to Luke as well. How can the governments help companies with ideas just like yours?
I think they should promote incentives. For example, because in France, they did 2 things. So there is the fiscal aspect, the tax credit aspect I described, which is more an incentive. And there is also the other aspect of the government, which is a punishing aspect. So in addition to the tax credit, which is an historical incentive, since over the last 3 years, they voted a law against food waste, which is a punishment. I mean, if a shop is still destroying food waste, they can be blamed, and they can get a fine up to 4,000 euros per problem. So that's the punishing aspect, and we believe more in the incentive aspect, which is try to push all the players towards circular economy, toward smart waste management, and to make the waste management more and more expensive, so that big players are incentivized to find new ways of dealing with it.
Okay, Luke, you're based in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I'm indeed, yeah.
An Englishman in the Netherlands, full company, Dutch. Is that right?
We are a Dutch company, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So in terms of what could a government do, or what can government do in terms of increasing or enabling more of a circular economy, I think from Fairphone's perspective, one of the things that we've seen in terms of a movement is actually some companies or there are certain incentives that are beneficial to people that offer spare parts. So for example, if you bring out an electronic product and actually you're able to provide those spare parts, there's incentives for that, and there's tax incentives for that. So I think that's obviously a really good move forward. And then also you have in Sweden, quite forward thinking what they've been doing in terms of electronics being imported. They have certain reductions for less hazardous chemicals being used in those products. So if you're reducing the amount of hazardous chemicals in that product, then they reduce the tax that you have to pay on. But in the Netherlands, it's still progressive. But those are things that we see.
Yeah, and in the same idea, in France, all the companies doing hard tech, like fintech, big data, or blockchain, etc., they can get a reduction of charges, social charges on the wages. And it could be applied to social innovation or environmental innovation, not just technological innovation. So that's also something governments can do. It's lower the taxes on the wages for new models, change makers models on social innovation and on environmental aspects, not just art tech, deep tech, and fintech.
Okay. Okay, so Jean, your company's been around for the last 5 years. Luke, how long has
So we started in, Fairphone started in 2012, so 5 years as well.
5 years as well.
Yeah.
Right, 5 years together. In those 5 years, I was asking you right now, number one challenge you've had, the number one hurdle you've had to get over, what would you say that is?
I think the electronics industry and the hardware industry is a very, very difficult industry because it's dominated by gigantic players. So when you enter the market like Fairphone and you're making orders that are quite predominantly small in comparison to others, your influence on being able to control that is very, very difficult. But the hurdle I think we've overcome in the fact that we've proved that there is a market for ethical smartphones. And the more that we prove that and the more that we grow, the more influence we're going to have within that industry.
And the bigger players are starting to see that. They're starting to realize, well, hang on a minute, there's more to it than what we've actually got at the moment.
Certainly. And I think just as a final note, I think we often talk about other players and we think of other smartphone brands, but we have to think across the whole supply chain. So it's also the attitudes of a consumer. You know, some consumers need to change the fact that actually they don't need to buy a new smartphone every year. You've also got the operators, you know, giving space to companies like Fairphone. But also behind the manufacturing, you've got the people that are buying materials, the people that are selling materials. There's lots of different actors that can have a positive impact, and that's what we're trying to do. By putting spotlight on the whole supply chain, we're showing that there's a chance to improve.
Great. Jean, biggest challenge?
We faced historically two challenges. One which is very similar to the one that you faced, which is we are trying to build and to implement gradually a new standard in waste management. So we have to fight against traditional legacy players who still enjoy collecting, landfilling, incinerating, destroying. So we have to change mentalities and to change legacy practices. So for a newcomer like us, it was quite hard to create awareness and to create a new reflex, a new standard. And the second challenge we had to face was just the fact that we deal with large companies, CAC 40 companies, B2B, big businesses. So what we call the selling cycles are quite long. When you want to deal with Carrefour, Auchan, Leclerc, Franprix, anyway, you need to get up early and to align 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10 planets, because you need to be aligned with CSR, with the buyers, with communication, with accounting. So you need to convince a lot of people to have the right to start making a pilot and then expand the relationship. So it's hard for a startup to deal with a big company, but in the end it happens. But it takes a long time.
Right. I think you'll agree with me. It's been quite an intriguing, productive, healthy discussion. The last thing I'm going to say now is, I know you guys don't want to really promote yourselves, but I'd love to do it for you. Listen, if you're intrigued, you'd like to know more about what you've heard from Luc and Jean, or you know someone that may be really interested to know a little bit more about what we've heard right now, you're here today, tomorrow as well. Jean, you're here today and tomorrow as well. I'm sure you could just grab a coffee with them, have a chat, and reach out. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Jean Moreau and Luc James. Thank you so much.